to another episode of Breaking Boundaries, the world's premier podcast for international students, or at least you can find it somewhere. I have the distinct privilege today of being joined by Dr. Angel Rios of Florida State's Center for Intensive English Studies. Dr. Rios, so grateful that you've joined us today.
Thank you for having me, John.
Yes, now I wanted to open with a question, not about the program, but about your background, because I think it's fascinating. You taught high school French for a long time. You also speak passable Italian, and you have a PhD in foreign language teaching. But I want to focus on your own French and Italian. What lessons have you derived from learning those foreign languages that you translate to the English language classroom today?
Yeah, when I first moved to the United States, I did not speak English, so I had to learn English at the high school level. And I was told accidentally that to meet the foreign language requirement for the high school, I could not take Spanish for Spanish speakers. That I had to choose a different language. And I'm like, I'm barely trying to learn English, and you want me to add on another language? But I had no choice, so they put me in a French class. About 5 weeks into the semester, the counselor calls me back and says, "Hey, I don't know who told you this. That's a mistake. You are ESL. You're not supposed to be doing two languages at once. We can put you in a Spanish for Spanish speakers to meet the foreign language requirement." And I'm like, no. By that time, I had fallen in love with my French teacher, with her techniques, with her approach, and with the language. And I said, I'm going to figure out how to do two languages at once, but I will do it and I will be successful. And that really initiated my love for languages and the passion for education, and then being able to combine both. So my experience with learning French, I feel, shaped me as a professor and my approach in teaching languages. My experience with learning English was so horrible that it reminds me of what I should not do as a professor, because the ESL programs in, at least in the state of Florida, are they need a lot of improvement, are not very successful or efficient. And so it's sort of like that sink or swim approach where you've got some actual English instruction, but then you're also in regular English classes and they'd say, figure it out, good luck, no translation, no support. And so that part for me was very difficult. But learning French, on the other hand, from the style that that teacher had, was enjoyable. And it really helped balance so that I was able to get the negative and the positive, and it helped shape me as a language professor now.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
For those listening, there are plenty of French words that are plopped into the English language. For example, we have chauffeurs and concierges, but
Yes.
but generally speaking, the languages are very different, and it's fascinating that you learned both simultaneously, and one was something of a joy and the other was a drag, if it's fair to say.
Yeah. And it
That's
was a
great.
necessity, right? English was the necessity because I had just moved to the United States. So it was kind of like the one I wasn't enjoying was the one that was not optional.
So interesting. As an aside, did you move here from Puerto Rico?
Yes, my
Okay.
family and I moved from Puerto Rico, kind of just in search of better opportunities for us kids. My parents wanted to be able to provide for us, but none of us spoke the language. So the entire family started from zero with learning English. And both my parents have master's degrees. My mom was a registered nurse, head of the entire northwest coast of Puerto Rico. All the hospitals were under her command. And she came to the US to not be allowed to practice. My dad went from being a college professor and high school principal, also with a master's degree, to cleaning bathrooms during the graveyard shift at a hotel. And that's how our first few years in this country started for us.
It's astounding. I have a good friend from Nigeria who was an attorney in Nigeria and moved to the States, and she had to work as a parking garage attendant while going to law school to gain her credentials anew. So it's quite an
Yeah.
adventure, and it makes perfect sense why you are where you are. So let's talk a little bit about the Center for Intensive English Studies at Florida State. Tell me a little bit more about the program and the students you serve.
Absolutely. So the Center for Intensive English Studies was a result of a research project that FSU was trying to conduct in order to attract more international students, not just to the university, but to the United States in general. We are a program that is in charge of receiving any international student who wants to do a bachelor's, master's, or PhD in the United States, but has not met the language proficiency requirement for that program or that university. So they come to us. It's a very intensive program. They're here 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. every single day. All the classes are daily. It's a very different schedule than the average college or university schedule. And they stay with us for as long as they need to until they reach the language proficiency level needed for the university or for the program that they want to study.
That's great. And how long are students typically in the program before they move on to what's next?
It could be an average of anywhere from 6 months to a year. So depending on what level they're in when they first come in and take their placement tests, that'll determine the length of stay for the program.
That's great. And do you tend to have a higher concentration of students from certain regions of the world, or is it a mix of folks from around the globe?
Right now, it's very, very mixed. As the world changes, our student population changes. So, for example, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even we would have been very heavy on the Middle Eastern populations, a lot of Saudis, a lot of Kuwaitis, and the countries that are.
Oh, the program didn't pay the
Sorry,
light
John.
bill.
Sorry.
All right, they paid the light bill. We're back.
Anyway, let me start that again. Um, the student population here varies as the trends around the world are varying. So 5, 10 years ago, we were very heavy on Middle Eastern students, where right now, we have 17 different countries represented in just this session alone. And every country that we have represented might have 2 to 4 students. Some will have one or two, but 17 countries in one semester, I mean, that's a lot of cultural diversity, and that's what it's been looking like the last few years.
Ugh, it makes me want to go back to school. I
Yeah,
saw online too that the university as a whole across all programs has more than 2,000 international students. So
correct.
are there opportunities for your students to socialize with those outside the program as well?
Yes. So the Center for Global Engagement, or CGE, is the department that is in charge of international students at FSU. So these are all of the international students that have already gone through our program and are ready to start the program or their major, or any students that came having already met the language requirement and they're ready to just go there and start. So CGE works very closely with us to make sure that students in our department who are still working on their English can start to meet other international students that are a little bit further ahead. They get to every Friday, we have this thing called coffee hour where a different country cooks and makes things from that country, and it's free, and we all just join together and eat and drink together and socialize. And Americans are also invited to come in and meet the international students. So every single Friday from 5:30 until whenever, you've got hundreds of students that are just getting together over food from any particular country to talk and meet and engage. So it helps them feel a little bit more prepared to transition from doing intensive English here to their major or whatever department they will study at Florida State.
Will you let me know the Friday where you're serving Turkish coffee, and I will drive to Tallahassee. I love that stuff.
It's a very popular one. It really is.
I want the strong stuff. Well,
Yes.
I mentioned Tallahassee, so stepping back from the program itself, just to give international students an idea of where you're located geographically, where is Tallahassee?
Tallahassee is a city that no one knows is the capital of Florida until they move here. Everybody always thinks it's, Orlando, Miami, or somewhere big, but it's not. Tallahassee's in the Panhandle. We are more like South Georgia than North Florida. Culturally speaking, Tallahassee has a very different feel from the rest of the state of Florida and a different look from the rest of the state of Florida. It really does feel like you're more in Georgia than you are in Florida. It's a big college town. We've got Florida State University, Florida A&M University, Tallahassee State College, and a few other technical schools, three or four technical schools and vocational schools. So a lot of students live here. So it's a city that deals a lot with government and business, being the state capital, but also education, having so many universities and schools that are based out of here.
And the Florida State was founded in 1851, so it's been around
Correct.
for quite some time.
Yes.
When students think of Florida, they may think of beaches, but Tallahassee, more like there's pine trees, right? It's
Yeah.
leafy.
We're a little bit more landlocked. Yeah, we're, 45 minutes to the nearest beach, which is, in the grand scheme of things, it's not far. But yeah, we're a lot more nature and trees and, a lot of hiking trails and that kind of thing more than the beach life. Yes.
And my guess is, in contrast to, let's say, Miami, New York, the cost of living probably a little more affordable there.
Yes, much, much more. I feel like everything is going up everywhere, but yes, in comparison to other areas of the state, Orlando and Miami being the more expensive of the state, it is much more affordable here. I mean, we have students that can still find apartments and the rent is under 500 a month. And I feel
Wow.
like that's unheard of in most places. So yes, much more affordable.
I may adjust my plans. I may be there not just for Turkish coffee, but just to live.
Exactly.
Last curiosity about the city itself. I love food. I'm not a foodie. I just love food. What's the dining scene like in Tallahassee?
Very good dining. I've been very blessed to have been able to travel a lot. So there are quite a number of places that we don't have that I wish we did. But Tallahassee is actually very well known for a lot of the local restaurants that are not chain restaurants. Some of these restaurants have been featured on TV and several times. Some of the very big, food shows, and Gordon Ramsay has been here a couple of times, and these restaurants that are always featured are the local spots. So it's one of the biggest attractions in the city is the food scene. It actually draws a lot of people. The quality is amazing. Some of the people who live here for a few years, going to school or whatever, and move away, that's always at the top of the list of what they miss the most is the food.
Hmm. All right. Well, I'll be there tomorrow. Um,
Yeah.
my my last curiosity for you, your program is unique and serves a unique type of students relatively early in their English learning journey. But with that in mind, do you have any tips for applicants to your program as they navigate that application process?
Yeah, we try to be as available as possible. I feel like it is very important for us and our program, administration, teachers, everybody that makes up who we are to move with the times. So we've been doing that. A lot of the support that we now provide for the students, it's via WhatsApp, and the ways that they're used to communicating and what's easy for them to reach, right? So everything starts on our website. cis.fsu.edu is the website for information, for application, for payment, for everything. Even if it's just videos to kind of get an idea of what our program looks like. There are videos about Tallahassee and what the city looks like. And, a lot of the questions you've asked me, that's the goal, to introduce the city to the students. But as they start the process of applying, then we provide a lot of support, via WhatsApp or phone calls or Zoom calls, and just try to help as much as possible. We have an automated system that also guides the students step by step in terms of, okay, you finished this step, now this is what's next, and now is where you upload these documents, and now you wait for an email, and so it's challenging, John, because like I said, we're getting an average of 15 countries every 7 weeks, not every semester, every
Wow.
7 weeks. So to be able to do that with someone who may not speak English well enough to understand you half the time,
Mm,
it's a challenge. But we've been able to be successful because of the many years of experience and incorporating technology and AI and translation services and just trying to make it as easy as possible. And then once we get the student here, make it feel like family. Like we understand. We've had to do the same thing. We've left our countries and moved to a new place and started from zero. Been there, done that. I understand what you're going through, what you're feeling. So let us fill that gap and be your family and your home away from home. So we pride ourselves in that probably more than anything, the sense of family.
man, well, your students are lucky to have you. Florida State's lucky to have you. I do
Thank
have,
you.
yeah, I have one final curveball question because I'm curious. All right, so you speak, as far as I know, English, French, Italian, Spanish. If you could learn another language tomorrow, what would it be?
Arabic, hands down.
Ah,
Arabic, 100%. It is the most common language group that we work with. It is the where the majority of partnership opportunities originate from for our program and for our university. Um, the largest populations of students tend to come from Arabic-speaking countries. So that's you're kind of touching on a topic that even just this week, I'm like, all right, what do I need to do to start proactively actually learning the language? Because I can manage enough expressions from my experience working here through the years that some of our Arabic speakers look at me like, do you speak Arabic and you're lying to us? Or, they're a little bit thrown whenever I bust out with what I know. But gosh, no, I don't have enough knowledge of grammar and the writing style, reading, no way. But I think that would be my next language to tackle.
well, somewhat kindred spirits. I took 2 semesters of Arabic in college, and I did finally learn the difference between the letters rein and rein. I think.
And that's hard.
It is, but I share the
Yes.
same desire to learn it. It's a beautiful language, and it opens
Yes.
access to hundreds of millions of people around the
Absolutely.
world. Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
Angel, rather than say thank you, I will say shukran for your time. This has
That was
been
fun.
fantastic, and we're going to bring you on the pod again in a few months and make you a recurring character.
I would love that. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, Angel, thanks so much for your time, and we'll put more information in the show notes when this is posted live. And thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.